Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to our weekly broadcast. This week, the title is basically why the stock market, continually is the best place to, put your money for long-term returns, and why it continues to generate consistent returns. Right? I think, we continually see this time and time again. That especially the U.S. stock market, right? I think when we're talking about the stock market, generally we're talking about U.S. stocks. What we've seen over time is international stocks just chronically underperform what happens in the U.S. And I think it's pretty easy to see why. If you just look what happens around the rest of the world consistently, especially if you look like Europe, the issues they had. Italy just went into another recession today. They have tons of problems. The Brexit deal, if you look at Japan, extremely slow growth. Just around the world, there's a lot of issues out there. Why, the U.S. really is the cream of the crop, especially when it comes to investing in the stock market. And it really comes down to the innovation and continued growth and prosperity of the companies that are listed here in the U.S., right? I mean, just,
right.
Rattle them off. Again, everyone thought Facebook was dead, right? And today they just posted huge earnings, more growth. You can't, it seems like people complain about this stuff and they like to and they're doing it, it's like they're on Facebook complaining about Facebook.
Yeah.
Using Facebook, right? Same thing, right? It's like, what people say and do are two different things. But, again, if you just look at what you use on a day-to-day basis,
Right.
Whether it's you're on your iPhone all day, using it to search Google, using it to access Facebook or Instagram, using it to buy stuff on Amazon, to buy your Nike, clothes, whatever it is, right? It's like all these are U.S. companies, and so many companies that you probably don't even know affect your daily lives or U.S.-based companies. So just the fact that we have all these, life-changing companies listed here in the U.S. that are available on the U.S. stock exchanges, that are part of every single index fund that people own in their retirement accounts, or their, just whatever they're putting money into the market. This is the stuff that the money is going into, and it's, people like to make it more complicated than what it is. But I think at the end of the day, it's just, we have access to great companies that continue to advance the economy and provide a better life for everyone. And, people like to complain about, these companies making too much money or not doing enough. But man, I mean, it's really hard to overrule that, how much better they've made people's lives.
Yeah, I mean that's what it really comes down to, right? Is that why, first of all, why do a lot of people want to be in the U.S.? Why is it such a privilege to be a U.S. citizen? What makes this country so great? And a lot of it are these companies, right? These companies that generate profits, they create value for people, they make our lives better and easier from tools like you mentioned, the iPhone. Man, how can you go? It's hard for me to go a day without my smartphone now, just because of how easy it is to get everything. And so, you have these companies that are making new things and have these great big ideas and are going after making it a better place for everybody. And so, our question is, why is investing in the stock market the best opportunity over the long haul, and you can make money and stuff like that? It's because you're getting to be able to be a part of that, right? You're getting to be you own stocks in these companies, you own investments in these companies, and they're doing great things, and you investing in those, you're helping, or you're part of that great thing, you're part of that growth. So as you see new iPhones come out, or you see whatever it is that these companies are doing, and you see their growth, well, you're part of that as being an investor. And so that's where you get some value from being in that investment.
Yeah, and again, I mean, we're seeing now too that more and more that, if you look at what the S&P 500, which is basically an index of the 500 biggest U.S. stocks, at least half of their revenue, money that, products that they're selling, services that they're selling, are coming from overseas too, right? So what does that mean? That not only are these companies developing product and services that dominate our economy, but they're also products and services that are dominating other economies across the globe, right? So it's this continued that, we export, and again, it's, I'm not going to get into details here, but, Trump likes to get on there and say, oh, we're running a deficit and stuff, and we have to buy things from other countries, and they should, listen, it's the end of the day is that, we run deficits from, these countries in a lot of cases because, we're going into these countries and making a lot of money, or these companies are figuring out how to buy cheaper products, use other innovations from other countries. And so, it's this idea that globalization gets a bad rap, but really at the end of the day, it's what really drives these companies to be able to integrate different labor pools from around the world, different different components from around the world, to make the best products they can to enhance everyone's lives, right? I mean, I think probably the perfect example of that is Boeing. I mean, if you travel, the fact of you ever being on a Boeing plane, I mean, what has Boeing done as far as, let's say, innovating the U.S., not only just, consumer air travel, public air travel, but also defense-wise too, right? They've made the U.S. and the world a dramatically safer place by, creating all these technologies, but then they've also allowed everyone to be able to fly and travel much more efficiently and better, safer, everything. And they source components from all over the world. And if you stop them from doing that, well, for one, they wouldn't be as valuable of a company, and your life would be worse off, right? But this is a U.S. based company. At the end of the day, when they make money, it's most of the money is coming here into the U.S. and it's going into high paying jobs. And the other thing that people forget too is these companies, their workforces are enormous, right? I mean, at the end of the day, corporations around the world employ the majority of the people, right? I mean, you can't argue that. And again, I think it's an interesting thing that people like to, again, kind of bash, but, with this government shutdown, these people, unfortunately, these federal employees, they don't make a lot of money, right? So, who would you rather rely on if you're a worker? I think this is a really interesting thing that no one talks about, right? Everyone thinks there's a stability of working for the government. Well, is there? I mean, if you really look at it, is there more stability, say, working for, the U.S. government versus working for a company like Boeing? Even if you are a lower level employee, you're going to have way more stability working for Boeing and probably make more money than you would working for the federal government. But yet people forget about these things all the time.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, to your point about the stability and you working for the U.S. government versus somebody like Boeing, like, not only from the salary standpoint, but can you move up? Can you get better? So these corporations, why they're so great, like I was talking about before, is because of competition, right? That's what the U.S. is based off: competition and always getting better. So if you work for one of those companies, they're going to want you to get better. They're going to push you to get better. So you're going to get better. You're going to be having more opportunities to make more money. And so it's just the whole culture, if you ask me. It's the culture of the U.S. is so. I think it's great. So, like you said, a lot of people might argue against this, but man, that competition, that let's get better, let's do better, let's grow, it is better for everybody. And so again, if you're working within a company that has that structure, that philosophy, then your opportunities are better as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that feeds, and that really feeds back into the stock market as a way of why people want to invest in it, right? It's why it makes up the majority of pension plans, and why it makes up the majority of, your retirement assets, or whatever it is, saving for your kids' education, whatever it is, right? It's going to be probably one of the main tools or vehicles that is available to people that anyone can use, right? And the other thing too that's not talked about is the access to being able to invest in these companies in the U.S. stock market has never been better, right? And again, here's something where technology and innovation has crept in. What was it, 20 years ago? Was it easy or expensive? Was it easy to invest in the stock market? No. Was it expensive? Yes. Could everybody do it? No. Can everybody do it today? Yeah, pretty much, right? I mean, unless you're a convicted felon or, or going through bank, unless you have something major, legal wise going on, you could go on to Charles Schwab or TD Ameritrade or Fidelity, open an account for free, put in $100 and invest in a U.S. index fund, right? And these are things like that Warren Buffett, the most successful investor of all time, pounds the tables on, right? I mean, he even took a bet recently that over, I think it was 5 years, that he would basically just pick the U.S. stock market versus basket of the most prominent hedge funds. Well, guess what won? The U.S. stock market, right? And it's beat it by a long shot. And our market has ups and downs. Some years it loses. Last year sucked, but it was still better than everywhere else.
Right.
Way better. And same thing, right? I mean, if you think the stock market is volatile, which it is, and it does go up and down, but over time it consistently goes up, and it goes up because of these things we're talking about, right? Of this culture of competition and efficiency and delivering value. There's so much competition in our economy now, and some people argue, is there too much competition? I mean, we're not here to to debate philosophy on that, but what we do know is that competition is, as a company, if you do not do what you're supposed to do, you get punished for it relatively quickly. And the market is very efficiency. It's sniffing out bad actors and punishing them. And it's very efficient at rewarding the consistent companies that are really bringing value and changing people's lives, usually for the better.
Right. So, I mean, I think that's another point there. The U.S. the markets in the U.S. are way more efficient than anywhere else in the world, right? And it's because, I think, well, for many reasons, but because of what you just said, if there's bad actors, they're going to get sniffed out in this market pretty easily because of, again, the culture, because of how things are run in this country. That if you're not keeping up with competition, if you're not staying innovative, if you're cooking the books or whatever else, it's going to come out pretty quick. Another stock market area, I don't know, let's take emerging markets, for example, Venezuela, Brazil. That whole place is just corrupt. The government's corrupt. The cops are corrupt. Everything's corrupt. How can you can't even argue what's a better investment when it comes to efficiency and opportunity and fairness, right?
Exactly. And I think, a good example is, you look at, what are the fastest growing economies in the world, right? And you look at, they're pretty much China and India, right? And then, the U.S. is growing, but it doesn't grow as fast. The U.S. has been growing about 3%. The total economy has, while economies in India and China have been growing more closer to 6%. But what stock market would you still rather own at the end of the day? It's still the U.S. stock market at the end of the day, right? And I mean, much less volatility, much more consistency, much more success for opportunity, much more, all these positive traits that we're talking about when it comes to investing, and what you should be doing with your money and what you should be focusing on, right? I mean, these people like to make this more complicated. They like to make it seem that there's that you have to really understand things at a very deep level to be able to make money and utilize the stock market. You really don't, right? You need time, and you need patience, and you just need the willingness to do it, right? I mean, that's really kind of the secret to success, is if you have time, and if you have the willingness to do it, and you have the patience to stick with your plan. Investing in the U.S. stock market has been the best thing that you can do for your money over the long term, right? I mean, compared to anything, compared to investing in the best hedge funds, and compared to, and especially nowadays with low cost investments out there that are transparent, that are easy access, that are available to everyone, that just brings more people able to invest in the market, which in essence, you can argue is just going to be able to propel the market higher and higher and higher as more people have access to it, right? It's no longer a rich person's game to be able to access the market. It's now being something that everyone can have access to.
Right. Yeah, and I think this is a totally different topic that we'll probably talk about in another video, but it just kind of sparked in my mind when you were talking about all that. But, investing isn't as sexy as everybody thinks it is. And everybody thinks that they're going to go find that golden egg, that new opportunity, that new thing that's going to make them a millionaire. And it's just, usually it's not true. It's like you said, it takes time, it takes consistency, it takes, just kind of the keep going at the same thing. Look at what's working, what's efficient, what's the best. But again, that's a whole other conversation. But the U.S. is efficient, it's transparent, it's strong and stable, and the culture there is
absolutely great. I mean, again, even if you look at all the political mess that's going on, has it really had that big of an impact as far as what corporations have been able to do? It really hasn't. If you really look at the numbers, man, it's been barely noticeable, right? So I think, again, that's a testament. And I think another point I want to make real quick is, we talked about being able to sniff out bad investments. I mean, look what happened. This PG&E, this big California utility company that just filed for bankruptcy a couple days ago, it was deemed that they had been a cause of a majority of these these California wildfires.
Right.
Guess what happened? Stock got hammered,
right?
And now they're filing for bankruptcy, right? I mean, and as soon as this information became publicly available, bam,
right,
got hammered, right? And that's what you want a market to see. You want the market to reward good, and you want it to punish bad. And I think the market does a really fantastic job of that over time, and people knowing that, these executives knowing that, the regulators knowing that, the board of directors knowing this stuff. It really incentivizes everyone to play by the rules and to do hopefully what's the best thing, because if you don't, you're going to get smelled out pretty quickly, and the results are not going to be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, everyone. Yeah, we just want to talk about this today. Again, this is we're talking about things, like I said, that hopefully from a different angle from what you usually hear. Try to talk about things kind of distilled down to what really matters, to the essence of the importance of things. So I think this is, again, an important thing. I think this is another topic that we can continue to expand on. But again, just trying to pass on these, I think, realistic outlooks of what it is that we see and how we practice, and share this with everyone is, a duty that we owe to people, right? We don't want to keep this information out there. We're not trying to hide anything.
Right.
We don't have the secret sauce that we're trying to protect, right? We use the tools that everyone else has, but I think we just have more of a front row seat to seeing what works, and we're just trying to share that as best we can.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, everyone, appreciate it.
All right.
Peace out.
Later.